Hey, what's up, guys? Back at it again here to look at some more Mason Rudolph film. This round, I'm going to talk about possibly one of Rudolph's biggest strengths, and that is pocket presence. Now, I think one thing to notate is this is an area where he did improve each year, kind of showed progressions throughout his career at OSU, which I think is a good sign for progressions in other areas of his game, specifically ones where he isn't necessarily as strong and will need to show improvement at the next level. Pocket presence and movement is really critical to be a successful quarterback. I think it's one of those top three or four skills you look for when you're evaluating a player. For example, if you look at some of the best QBs in the NFL over the last 10 years, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, Phillip Rivers, Aaron Rodgers, none of these guys are blowing your doors off with athleticism. If anything, guys like Manning, Rivers, and Brady are actually really slow and maybe even considered unathletic. But they understand pressure and are able to make subtle pocket movements to buy time and be able to make those correct throws. They need an extra 1 to 2 seconds, and they're able to feel that pressure and be able to buy time to do that. So a guy that I think is a great example is Tony Romo. Now Romo was certainly a controversial QB during his time. Cowboys didn't have a lot of postseason success, but there's no taking away that Romo was a master at pocket movement. He was great at feeling the pressure, avoiding the pressure, which we'll take a look at when comparing to Rudolph. Romo really had a nasty spin move also to evade pressure. Rudolph's got a few nice moves of his own as well. So now, don't get me wrong. I love a guy like Lamar Jackson as QB in terms of that true dual threat guy. But with that being said, give me a QB with really good, like a good solid throwing QB with good feel for pocket presence and pocket movement over a good QB that is dual threat any day of the week. I think it's important to note that a lot of people think that pocket movement, or they think of pocket movement, they automatically think being dual threat. And I don't think that's accurate. I think good pocket movement can be as little as sliding 1 to 2 steps left or right to buy more time. Oddly enough, I was actually just interacting with some draft media on Twitter this past week or two. They were bringing up some videos that were criticizing his pocket presence. These are certainly, or there are certainly instances where Rudolph, drops his eyes down, handles situations poorly, but those are rare. I've watched, pretty much every throw that he's made, probably 3 or 4 times now in terms of 2017. I think the tape tells the real story, and that's Rudolph consistently shows good pocket presence and able to evade a reasonable amount of pressure well and keep his eyes down the field, which is critical. We've talked about holes in Rudolph's game in previous videos in regards to arm strength, ball placement, being able to do a full field read, sticking on his primary read too long. There are plenty of situations throughout his tape that you can point to when talking about these topics in terms of a negative light. But I feel criticism on Rudolph's lack of pocket presence is generally unfounded by myself, in my opinion. So we're going to take a look at a few examples, and I'm going to run I'm going to do 4 videos today. I'm going to run all of these in half time, so you'll get a real good look in regards to kind of those subtle movements I'm referring to. So the play number 1, this is against Iowa State. This is a true play action call out of an offset pistol look here. So Rudolph is actually going to have his back turned to the line of scrimmage, which is important and why I kind of selected this highlight. Off the top, I'm going to run this a little bit. So you'll see here this play action, and he's going to hit the top of his drop right here. And I think a few things to point out. One, how quickly he identifies this rusher right here is going inside, and he's actually going to beat this guy and start to create pressure almost immediately off of Rudolph's drop. So that's one thing, how quickly Rudolph identifies that. And two, how quickly he's able to step up off of the back. I mean, so all of his weight is planting on his back foot here. How quickly he's able to step up, evade this pressure, and then all while keeping his eyes down the field, which I think is a critical component of this whole thing. Doesn't necessarily find anyone open, as you'll see. He kind of scans the field and then quickly makes a decision to take the ball down, run, and get about 8-9 yards here. So great example of being able to identify rush quickly, get out of your drop quickly, step up, evade the rush, make a quick decision to get some 8 or 9 yards on a quick run. Okay, play number 2. This is a 5 wide look here. Same game, Iowa State 2017. This game and opponent was somewhat unique because Rudolph clearly holds the ball too long here in this play. I mean, there's no doubt about it. But he faced, Iowa State's 3-man rush virtually the entire game, and actually ended up making several plays off, or on off-breaking routes from being patient and literally holding the ball too long. So, it's one thing to tell him to get the ball or rid of the ball quicker, but another thing where you're facing 3-man rush and you can be patient and try to find open receivers. So, I'm going to run this a little bit here. What you're going to find is, so you've got a 3-man rush here. There's a formulation here of a nice pocket. So he starts to step up. And then what you're going to find is this defender here was in a spy, or a short zone of some sort. So ultimately he ends up running up to try to rush Rudolph here. Now, what I like here is 2 things. One, I'll run the tape here. He's athletic enough to beat this defender. So he beats him. But look at already his eyes are up. Immediately after he beats them, eyes are down the field. Virtually the entire play, with the exception of maybe 1 to 2 steps to beat that defender. So not surprisingly, he's able to find a wide receiver open downfield after a long time in the pocket. Now it's kind of a duck, not a pretty throw, but he gets the job done. So nice example of being able to step up in the pocket versus a 3-man rush, evade, a blitzing linebacker, keep eyes down the field, find an open receiver, on an unscheduled play. Play number 3. This is definitely my favorite example of the bunch. Actually, the last 2 are my favorites, but this one's number 1. Pre-snap here. Well, we need to know this play is pulling the left guard. So you've got the left guard here. I'm circling with my cursor. He's actually going to pull around in some like a trap block scheme here. Why that's important is because you've got a 3-technique defensive tackle right here, and then this center is actually going to be responsible on a reach block to be able to take him. That's a lot of space. He's actually aligned outside of this guard right here. So this guard's going to pull. This center has to make it all the way over here to take this defensive tackle. The reason I'm bringing that up is it creates a significant challenge for that center, and Rudolph actually recognizes this pre-snap, which I think is critical. And you'll see him immediately after the mesh point. So this is actually going to be a play action here situation, which actually helps with pocket protection as well from the running back. I think this is J.D. King. But you're going to find a play action, and then you're going to find an immediate step to the right to help avoid this pressure. So the reason I'm bringing that up is, 1, the pre-snap analysis to know that this is a really tough reach block here. And 2, to feel the pressure almost immediately and to be able to slide over. So I'm going to run this a little bit for you. Mesh point, slide over. So you can see here. So that was good because you can see he made it upfield quite a bit right here, and was able to slide over and really make himself a nice pocket. Now he ends up stepping up. He feels pressure on the edge. So ends up stepping up about 2 or 3 more steps. Ends up with a real nice pocket, which is really nice movement there. Now, because of the movement, this is a totally unrelated aspect here. He ends up with an overly wide base. This foot actually hasn't even come down yet, but that's too wide of a base. And then ultimately his back foot ends up going wild on him. So, anyways, he's real lucky that this ball didn't sail on him. But those are things that you can get cleaned up in regards to, the footwork, which generally his footwork is very good. However, on that particular case, wasn't a great example, but very good example of good pocket movement, subtle movements, like I mentioned, 1 to 2 steps to the right, being able to recognize where there may be mismatches with the offensive line. That's just a savvy senior quarterback. Be able to understand the scheme well and where the deficiencies are. This is play number 4. This is the last play I'm going to look at. There's probably about 15 or 20 other plays that I had kind of highlighted with pocket presence, but for the sake of this not being an hour long, I'm just going to take a look at 4. It's another great example of Rudolph constantly keeping his eyes downfield, trying to find open wide receivers. I mean, he's a pass-first quarterback. So if you're a pass-first quarterback, you have to keep your eyes downfield. It's critical. So you're going to see this edge rusher here, 15, who was an absolute terror in this game for Oklahoma State. He's actually going to win the edge. This is Tevin Jenkins, who's the backup right tackle. He had a tough game. You're going to see him. He's going to win the edge with some nice hands here. I'm going to run this a little bit for you. So here you can start to see Rudolph starts to recognize this. And what you're going to see is he's going to step up and dip his shoulder and ultimately be able to evade that pressure. All while keeping his eyes down the field. I mean, immediately after, his eyes are down the field. And he's actually able to scan the entire field, potentially go look at some other secondary receivers and get the ball down to Dylan Stoner for a nice gain on second down there. So those are some good examples of Rudolph being able to maneuver the pocket against pressure, which I truly think is a critical skill set. If I had to guess, I would say the 2 best qualities for Rudolph would be his touch and pocket presence would be number 1 and number 2. So this was certainly fun to look at some areas where he really succeeds. So anyways, hope you guys enjoyed the video and take care.